so great.
You so dry.
We appreciate Lord Farquhar. Don't do it. Oh, boy.
Yikes! Hello, and welcome to But Clearly Podcast. We are so thrilled that you decided to join us yet again. I'm here with my girls. Yolanda, what's going on?
Hey, how are you, girl?
I'm doing pretty good. Nee, what's going on with you?
What's up? I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. So listen, we're going to get right into it with a topic that we all have come to know and love, depending on where you are in life. This is the one thing that has been constant in all of our lives, the love for R&B music. So today, we're going to chop it up about things like, is there a good or the favorite or the most hidden poppin' R&B song out there? Is there a best artist out there? Who wants to jump in and start? Let's talk about it.
Well, let's start with this controversial t-shirt. For those of you that are listening to the audio, you can't see what Reunita has on, but she has Michael Jackson on. And so before we start the show, we're already about to come to blows. Because is Michael Jackson really R&B? I'm curious as to you all's thoughts about that.
Michael is all encompassing.
Well, here's what I think about MJ, right? I think that the foundational structure of who he was with not just him as he was older, but younger, more importantly, with the group that he had, I think that in its purest form is considered to be R&B.
Mm.
Now, when he got older and started hanging with the monkey, that's where things kind of started.
Not bubbles start to pop.
Started to shift a little bit. I mean, what do y'all think? Like, what do you think?
No, I agree with you.
Is he R&B or is he just solely pop?
I think Michael Jackson with a broad nose and an afro before Bubbles, Mama. Like, I totally agree. Jacksons are R&B. But the moment Katie, a.k.a. heard that other woman on the phone, that's Michael took his shift.
You know what?
I think it was the Pepsi commercial and the fire. It just burned all of the R&B out of his soul.
You cannot say that. Like, what's the song? Remember the Times. Like, that is R&B.
Remember the time.
Like, that is R&B. Butterfly is R&B. Like,
Butterfly is. But you know what? It's kind of hard to put him. It's hard to kind of bottleneck him into a genre because he was so gifted and so talented. When you think about things like Thriller, no one was doing that. Yeah. And quite frankly, who has done that since then? Yeah. You know, so is it pop? I don't think so. Is it R&B? Maybe not. I feel like he's kind of like in a league of his own.
I would agree. So for all the Michael Jackson stands, don't be coming for us. We just said that.
No, don't come for you.
Whatever. Well, I said what I said. He's in a different category after Pepsi. I love all of his music, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I think that them sparkles and that fire might have.
Yeah, it changed some things.
It messed some things up for him.
It did. It was the phone call before the fire. How are y'all?
Are we preaching a song or?
So R&B?
Should I lift my hands and worship?
So let's get back to R&B as a whole.
Yeah, so let's discuss R&B, right? What is the best R&B artist that's out there?
Ooh. Out here currently. So I think.
Are we talking current or in general?
Okay, so let's start. I mean, we can easily go to 90s R&B. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I'm going to be partial to say that 90s R&B was something to behold.
That's it. The standard for R&B is 90s R&B. For me, I feel like.
So what would you, when you think of R&B, how would you describe it? What does it mean to you?
Ooh. It's a feeling. I feel like R&B is the heartbeat of the Black American community that transcended our community and went everywhere. And I know a lot of people like to credit hip hop with that, and I think hip hop has a place, but I really think that R&B was the blend of the best of soul, which is what I consider that Motown era to be a soul era. I think it was the best of that with a merger with some of the elements of hip hop. That's for me is rhythm and blues. I know that's not the technical definition, but for me, that's what I feel like R&B is. It's just a feel.
Honestly, R&B is what gave hip hop its street cred. And what I mean by that is that when hip hop came along, it really was a genre that they thought was going just like a fade, a fad, and it was just going to fade to black after, a couple hits here and there. But it was the marriage between R&B and hip hop that solidified hip hop as a genre to me. Not to say that hip hop couldn't stand on its own, because we got some dope, amazing artists that came within that foundation, as well as you entered into what they considered the golden era of hip hop, which would be 90s. But the 90s was so magical because there was such a fusion of genres across the board, not just R&B and hip hop, but you saw it with rock, you saw it with pop, you saw it across the board. So, yeah. R&B.
I feel like R&B is that epicenter, though. I feel like there is no other music, and I love hip hop, but I don't feel like there's any other music other than Motown sound in that era that does it for me. And maybe I'm just aging myself. That does
you
it
are a little bit.
Here's what I think.
R&B.
When I think about the definition of R&B, I think love and everything in its purest form, the breakups, the makeups, the excitement, the dream, the first date, the times where you wish that he would call, but he didn't call. I think about, it's this episode, not this episode, but it's a part in Waiting to Exhale. When one of the character goes, they're listening to a song, I think is Why Does It Hurt So Bad? And in that moment, I think it's Whitney Houston's character that says, why do they create songs like this to make you feel a certain type of way? And when I think of R&B, that's really what I think about. And, as we introduce ourselves at the beginning, it really, if you think about it, is that one constant, because whatever situation you find yourself in your relationship status, I guarantee you have a song to match whatever that emotion or emotional connection is to that particular person. And so that's why I believe that it's one so beautiful and it's so powerful. And I think it's, even though it's a part of Black culture, there's a diversity to it, because regardless of whether people want to admit it or not, they listening to it too, and it's impacting their lives too. You know what I mean? So let's talk about 90s hip hop, 90s R&B for a second. Let's talk about that first. What are your favorite artists of the 90s? This is tough.
It's really tough. I definitely would say Tony Tone is one of the groups that I loved in the 90s, in the R&B. Mint Condition, Blackstreet. There were a lot of groups that are 90s R&B groups that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed artists. I already know who Reunita's gonna say, but I'll spin it on over to her for her favorites.
Oh gosh,
we know who's at the top of the list.
And that would be Faith Renee Evans.
Oh God.
Because that woman has 3 tracks in a row on her first album that I promise you that is the trifecta of all things R&B. That is completely quintessential to me. 90s
Name
R&B.
them. Name them.
So, oh gosh.
Stirred.
See, now you got about to make me have to sing it.
And that's fine too.
Oh.
No, it's Reasons. It's
Mhm.
gosh, you put me on the spot.
Google it.
This is
Let me see. What is it? Faith Evans' first album. Let's
Yes,
see.
it's like that last three. It's like
Faith
there is no
Evans.
skip, and there's no way for you to like. Every time that I listen to the album, I'm just like, oh, I'm just kind of just listening, whatever. You hear the one, and then it's just kind of like, oh my gosh. And then you get into the other one, you're just like, yeah, I forgot about this one too. And then you get into the last one, you're just like, yeah. For me, there's no way, like she's always my favorite, but I have other people that I love. And that's because I love music. I love good music. And for me, as a singer, I don't care what age, what genre, if you put out something that provokes me to want to sing, then that's when I know that you've done your job.
I love that. Okay, so just for the record, the last 3 songs off of the first album are You Don't Understand, Don't Be Afraid, and Reasons.
And Reasons. Yes, Lord.
So
yes, Lord.
There you go. So for me, I've always loved everything. Everybody that you guys have named is like, yes, A+ for me. But in addition to those, some that we do have to talk about, obviously SWV.
Oh yeah.
There are songs that are still sung by SWV to this day. Black, is it Blackstone?
Blackstone. Mm-hmm.
Brownstone.
Brownstone. And one of my absolute favorite that I just believe that doesn't get enough credit, but as super talented, was Groove Theory. I loved.
This is why we're
Emile LaRue was my girl. Okay.
This is why we're best friends.
And so, those, but you can't, some honorable mentions, obviously, Toni Braxton, she paved the way for so many. And especially, I think Anita Baker, besides Toni Braxton, Anita Baker, they're mostly known for being that alto, strong type of tones where most people were belting things out, but they still made it beautiful. So those are people. Destiny's Child was still, they were kind of coming in on the ranks. John B. Don't listen to what people say. They don't know about, girl. Huh.
Listen.
What's some other ones? Now, don't y'all come trolling me after I say this name now, because regardless of how we may feel about who he is,
nope,
he
don't
still
you do it.
Made a strong foundation.
Don't you do it. Don't step into it. Don't do it, Miss Seeley.
Well, it is what it is. He influenced it. He influenced the genre for sure, irrespective of his personal life.
Okay, so when we think about some of the hits, we didn't even talk about TLC. I mean, who's doing
good? But I also think Tevin Campbell, even though he doesn't have an album that I would listen to from top to bottom.
Oh God, no, he's definitely one.
His voice was such a powerhouse. I mean, people are still singing "Can We Talk for a Minute?" I like that.
But he's more than just "Can We Talk," and that's the part that I feel
it's
so sad.
And it is sad because lyrically, when you think about the lyrics to his songs, you could literally close your eyes and envision yourself in those moments. The way that he was able to orchestrate real life in a song, I think was very beautiful and very poignant, and something that he doesn't get a lot of credit for, but should.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so that's 90s.
Well, you can't go. Wait a second before you transition.
Okay.
I mean, though her runs are questionable, and she may not always say the right words, pronounce them the right way, but you can't talk about 90s R&B and not talk about Mary J. Blige.
That's true.
Yeah.
My life was
that was everything. And what I love about My Life is it bridged the gap between old school and new school R&B, because people who didn't feel relevant in R&B in the 90s, that were of the older generation, were able to relate. And then it exposed the new sound to the people who are just being introduced to R&B. So yeah, we definitely have to give her props.
That was my first secular
Same.
CD that I could purchase.
Same.
Was What's the 411? It was Mary J. Blige, What's the 411?
My first two albums that I brought were R&B albums. And I remember going to Ray's Disc and Tape in Florence, South Carolina. Shout out to Florence, South Carolina. And I remember my mother was like, you can get 2 of those worldly. You can get 2 of those worldly albums. I remember getting TLC, Ooh on the TLC tip.
Uh-oh.
I remember getting Mary J. Blige, My Life. And my mother was so in love with the My Life album because, to your point, Shavonda, it had those songs like I'm Going Down. My mother was like, wait a minute now, this is my type of music. So, you know, again, just that's how you know it's real music. When you remember where you were.
Yes.
When the album came out, when you brought it. I remember like opening up CDs or tapes and ready to read all of the stuff on the inside to figure out who wrote the song or if they wrote a note. I mean, you just
and it was a bonus if they added the lyrics in there.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so one that we didn't mention, Jagged Edge.
I have a love-hate relationship with them.
Why?
Because all their music sounds the same.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
With it.
Yeah.
He can love you like I
That's
love you,
isolated.
baby, you know it's true.
And Let's Get Married. Everything else sounds the same.
Yeah, it's
nothing is promised. Yeah, that sounds the same.
No, it doesn't. Oh, wait a minute. Intro.
Now, see you digging in the crates. Is where she's saying. She's saying who? This is where the age gap comes in.
Listen, y'all a little bit more seasoned than me.
This is where the age gap comes in because
I need you to get into
I'm pretty sure by the time Yolanda could listen to those things, they unfortunately were
on their phase. They were phasing out
because unfortunately Kenny Green got sick and ultimately passed. But they remade Ribbon in the Sky, and I will have to say that was ballsy and gutsy to remake a Stevie Wonder song, but remake it in a way because it stayed number one for a minute.
It was,
but the rendition that they did, oh my gosh,
it beautiful.
Was amazing. And Kenny Green was.
I need everybody to go. Can we just make that viral? Can somebody do an intro challenge because they deserve it.
But here's the other part. When you're talking about, and this is why 90s R&B is just a thing, because we haven't talked about the vocal Bible herself.
Brandy.
I
would say to Shavonda's early.
And Monica, but yeah.
Okay, I think Brandy.
I wasn't saying that they were equal. I'm just saying that.
But I felt something in my spirit because you put both of them in the same sentence. It just didn't sit well right here. But Monica has a beautiful voice. Don't get me wrong.
Just one of them days.
I love it. It was so great.
You're so dry.
We appreciate Lord Farquhar. Don't do it. Oh, boy.
Yikes.
I mean, that's what we had. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say it. All right, but that, the verse.
We were talking about Brandy, focus.
But Brandy, the Bible.
Lord Farquhar, I am done.
The Bible.
Stick a fork in me, done. I ain't never in my life.
She just had such tone.
Yeah.
That just was like, oh my gosh, and control over her runs. There was a place with no control. Brandy has such control. And I think similar, Shavonda, what I appreciate, I think all of us sing, as someone that's an alto, again, it made those lower tones more acceptable everybody at the time thought that they had to be
in the rafter.
Whitney or Mariah.
Mariah.
In order to sing. It was refreshing to hear someone with this great voice, great tone, and singing in her lower register. I love that.
So we didn't talk about, and I know this was a group that Nee absolutely positively loved. I did too, but she probably loved them more than me. Zane.
Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they were great.
The harmonies, the blend was like effortless. And it was two people, but they had a way of singing that made you feel like you almost were listening to a choir sometimes. Like,
was Escape in the 90s?
Yes, they were.
They were.
Every man is a woman.
What was that other group? It was another group.
I'm just quiet.
Jade, don't walk away,
boy.
Yep.
I'm not going.
There was In Vogue.
In Vogue, that's what I was looking for. In Vogue. Now, In Vogue, it's a shame how groups can't seem to stay together because
both male and female, even though they like to put it on the women.
But In Vogue had something so unique and so special. And it's just a shame that for whatever reason they weren't able to just make it timeless because they made some really good music.
All of them could sing.
I want to talk
every last one of them, which is very rare.
I think that is rare. I want to talk about the R&B visual aspect because the videos, it wasn't just the music. It was videos that made you feel like you were there in the song.
I could hear.
Was Jodeci in the 90s?
Huh?
Yes. Was Jodeci in the 90s?
Yes, Jodeci was in the 90s.
Boys to Men.
Now that was my group, Boys to Men. I love.
You know, and even though like you had one that was more hood and the other one was more, you know, whatever, mainstream. But to your point, I didn't have to close my son's eyes to watch a video back then, for the most part. You know, what we considered raunchy back then, now it's like, it seems holy because of how I think far away we've come from the thought process that you can be cute and classy and tasteful and appropriate and not share everything, or it's just we've come a long way from
that. But
I
feel like that's in part why a lot of people will say R&B is dead, because on the flip side, for everything that you laid the foundation that R&B is, where do you see that displayed in the current music?
Can I mean, that's a great question. Is it even still a thing?
I will say this, and I'll answer that question and tie it together. I think what I loved about the visuals and the music, to your point about love, and maybe that's why I'm kind of spoiled now, you would see grown men singing in the daggone rain, quote unquote, trying to get a woman back, in that part of love. I think that now everything is so about quickness and about the physical part and about sex that it makes it hard for it to really be about love. Now, I will say this, it's not 90s, but that Black Rose album from Tyrese just came and just resurrected. Like Tyrese and Tank are on a mission to revive R&B, and I'm here for it. Because that Black Rose album, I was like, now this is I could play that from start to finish over and over and over.
I still don't understand how he didn't get a Grammy that year. But to your point about the visuals, there's never a time that I don't hear My Everything by Mary J. Blige and I don't visualize the video.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hype Williams was that dude back in the 90s.
Yes, he was.
With those videos.
Yes,
so yeah.
But I mean, is R&B still alive? I mean, what artists are out there now? You think about 2023. What's out there?
I think that there's always artists that are out there. I think that by and large, our music reflects the culture. and where the current state of the culture is. And I think the unfortunate part about it is that those that do have the messaging and the sound that we like, we love, they don't get nearly enough support or recognition, because what is mainstream R&B, which is more of a hip hop thing. I just think it's weird that we are in a time where rappers want to sing and singers want to rap.
It's a mess.
But I don't think, I think your point is a valid one, Nick. I don't think it's dead. I think it's not mainstream because that's not what sells anymore. You know, love used to be a thing that sells, and now what sells is the fantasy of something quick. And so that's what people are saying about. But I will shout out some artists that are keeping R&B alive. I talked about Tyrese and Tank, but Alex Isley is keeping R&B alive.
Love her.
Samo is keeping R&B alive. Junie is keeping R&B alive. Kenyon Dixon, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
that boy
Can sing down.
So I think the to Reunita's point, I think that there are so many people that are trying to do R&B music that are independent artists, and it's a little harder, but it's making it easier because of platforms like YouTube and streaming services to get access to them. But the problem is that it's not getting on the radio, where when we grew up, we heard what we loved and that type of singing on the radio. So I think it's my question.
Do we even listen to the radio? I don't know the last time I listened to the radio.
Again,
local radio.
No, we don't. So that's what I'm saying. The dynamics have changed based on access of how we get it to music. It's just like there's so many people saturated, and you don't have that main place where you go to get it. It's harder for people to break out to be really mainstream that are R&B. But people are trying to keep it alive.
I just wish that, like, for me, and I will, for me, I honestly feel like the best R&B would be, personally, while I love 90s R&B and I stand on it because that's, 80s baby, 90s raised me. But to me, as far as R&B is concerned, I would go back to the 70s because it was very innovative. The voices that came from that time literally laid the foundation for what we came to love in the 90s, because it literally was the fusion of the 70s music with that music that they were doing at the time that made it so popular and made it what it is. But you can't skip over the 80s either, because the 80s was more about the ballads and, that part of it or whatever. And then when you transition into the 90s, it had like a more of a funk to it, because you had that hip hop infusion in there. The subject matter, the way that they talked about love changed or whatever. It became more about this hood love and making it's what it is. And then we hit the early 2000s.
Well, let's go back real quick, because there's one person that we had, it's two people that we haven't talked about that I think is important for us to talk about, because they really paved the way. One of them is Babyface.
He is R&B.
He is the epitome
personified.
Yes.
I changed my mind about the definition. The definition of R&B is
Babyface. Amen.
In a box.
I second that. And, I was able to go to one of his concerts, and it was a concert with him. Well, my first concert with him was in Vegas, where I had to take one for the team, but I'm not better. As another, we need to, okay, that is one. Just talking about taking one for the team. But anyway, oh yes, we can talk about Vegas. Okay, but anyway.
Focus.
Okay. But to see the impact that he's had with so many different artists, from Boys to Men, Whitney Houston. I mean, we're talking about people who have impacted cultures from generation to generation to generation. And so I'm looking for, and I desire to see, like, who is going to be that next baby face? Who's going to be that next L.A. Reid? People who are able to identify the sound and identify the
Well,
hits.
here's the other part to that. In order to write a love song, you have to be able to be vulnerable. And if you are dealing with people that don't know how to express themselves in general, and then you want them to tap into a side of themselves that is a little scary, because when you're opening up in that way, that
I think what you're tapping on is a bigger issue. We're in a generation, not to be super deep, but we're in a generation that is devoid of understanding what love is. So it's hard to write, to your point, Reunita, from a place of experience, or even sing about that experience in a believable way if you're not open. But I do think, to your point about Babyface, he is the Smokey Robinson of our generation, and he understood the sound that was needed for the time that we were in. And to your point, I don't know if there's one person that I can say has taken the time to realize what is the sound for this generation and how to articulate that in a way that's timeless. Because the other thing about R&B, or our parents, they would get on here and do the same thing about the Motown sound or the Isley Brothers. These are songs that you want to listen to even as you age. I know that there are a lot of songs. I'm not going to say there aren't any, but a lot of these songs that are out right now, I can't say 30 years from now, I'm going to want to listen to these songs. Like, I can't say that, like, my older self is going to be like, oh, yes, that's taking me back to a time. Like, Bruno Mars might take me there, but I don't know if we purely consider that R&B. But
I was about to say, is he?
I think he is. I mean, he has. I mean, I think
that Sonic is R&B.
He's transitioned a little bit from R&B to more of a pop sound, but I think that in Bruno Mars's purest form, yeah, he is definitely, in my opinion, R&B. And now, one person we need to talk about and have not, my boy Prince.
Prince is not R&B to me.
Wait.
Diamonds and Pearls?
Wait. You just got on here and at the top of this.
Well, you see where I stand.
What do you mean?
He's not all to me.
Purple Rain.
If I have to be honest, I will say this. I feel like Prince is very much like Michael Jackson, where it's like he does not fit in one category. Because
but he fits there.
Prince was he has R&B songs, but he also had rock. He also had, like, you know, pop stuff. Like he had his own category. Like, I don't know. I just wouldn't consider him R&B per se.
I guess. Well, this has been a great conversation. I think we should just make t-shirts that say "Bring R&B Back," because obviously there is opportunity there. But to Yolanda and Nee's point, that there are some people who are still out there, artists that are still holding it down and fighting for the goodness and the pure form of R&B. And for those who are doing it and doing it well, thank you. Please continue in your efforts, because you're needed. Because at the end of the day, who doesn't appreciate a love song? We didn't even talk about Love Jones and different movies, and how R&B has created spaces and has made illustrations to kind of put the cherry on top for so many different movies, like Waiting to Exhale. There's so much that we could talk about.
Boomerang.
That
soundtrack is blazing.
Oh my God. These are albums that you could play from beginning to end and leave nothing out. But until next time, we want to thank everyone for your support. Remember, continue to connect with us. Like, share, tell a neighbor, tell a friend. Make sure you subscribe. You want to be able to get those notifications when they come up for our new podcast episodes. This podcast is brought to you by Jesus Groupie Clothing.